Story 1. A few winters ago, my neighbors moved rather suddenly before they sold their house. This left their house empty, and they worried about it looking empty, so they asked if I could go over once in a while and turn on lights. Maybe shovel the walk if we got snow. Make the house look lived in. I had no problem doing this as they had been great neighbors and I was sad to see them go. That same winter I had a toddler, a baby, and I was pretty decently pregnant around 7 months along. My husband also worked a lot out of town, so about 2 weeks out of the month, I was on my own with my brood. So my ex-neighbor must have let their realtor know that I was helping by turning lights on and off and shoveling the front walk if it needed it. The realtor shows up, I will call her Ronnie, and introduces herself and thanks me for my help. Great. She must have also gotten my number from ex-neighbor because soon she started texting me requests. This ranged from dusting the house, turning on certain lights, etc. ahead of showings. I went over the first time she asked and swift a bit and turned on the requested lights. She texted me later how she was disappointed at how dusty the house was. I ignored that text as I didn't give a hot damn what she thought. Then the requests became an everyday thing. She basically wanted me to set the house up every time she had a showing. I had my kids and was very pregnant with a high-risk pregnancy. I wasn't on bed rest or anything, but I had to be careful. I ignored all of these requests. The kicker came when we got a heavy snow. I'm talking a good 1.5 feet of heavy, wet snow. Heart attack snow. Ronnie the realtor texts me at 8 p.m. that she will need the driveway cleared by the next morning. The absolute audacity was audacious. I responded to that one asking if she was out of her mind, that I was 7 months pregnant, and no way was that happening. She asked if my husband could do it. I said he was out of town. She said, "Well, you'll have to figure something out." Excuse me, madam. I sent her laughing face emojis and went back to what I was doing. Well, lo and behold, Ronnie the realtor was at my door the next morning knocking like she was the cops. Full-on fist banging. I opened the door in my pajamas whilst using my baby bump to hold up my baby as he nursed. Irish twins are fun, and just stared at her. She actually had the nerve to say, "I thought I told you the driveway needed to be cleared. I have a showing in a half hour." I told her to lose my number and shut the door in her face. I then called my ex-neighbor and told her she better put a leash on her pet realtor BC. I was about done with her. She was horrified and promised me she'd take care of it, which she must have done. BC. I didn't hear from Ronnie the realtor again. I did, however, enjoy watching her high-stepping it through all that snow. Story 2. So I work at a very busy restaurant. We get loads of customers every day. Bear in mind, this is pre-pandemic. Anyways, on to the story. So I try to be as professional as I can at work, but sometimes I also try to slip in some humor to keep the mood up. So I put on a little show for a group of people after I have delivered their order. Everything seems fine until the entitled mother and her son walk in. I already felt uneasy by their presence as the mother didn't look like she was in her best mood. So I kept on doing my work for about 10 minutes before I went to the group again to clean up their table, and all of them gave me about $50 tip for putting up a good show. Unfortunately, the entitled mother noticed my huge tip, and as always, she was hungry for some cash. After the group had left and I was wiping their table, when the entitled mother and her son came up to me with the fakest smile I have ever seen in my life. Entitled mother: "Hey, how are you?" Me: "Hey, I am good, thanks. I saw that you got a pretty hefty tip there." "Yeah, I know. I'm pretty surprised myself." "Well, you surely don't need that money. You're so young. Your parents are probably buying you everything you need. But my son here could use that money as he really wants this new video game. So would you be so kind to give him the money? You don't need it anyway." At this point, I was dumbfounded. Did this witch really ask me to give her son my tip? I work in a restaurant to save up for when I need to rent an apartment for university. No, that's not going to happen. I actually need this money. No, you don't. Your parents can just give you the money. You don't need it at all, and you need to listen to your elders, so hand it over, young man. Yes, she literally said that. I do have a bad temper, and I can get annoyed pretty fast, so right now I was fuming. But I didn't want to lose my job, so I kept as calm as possible and told her in a very toxic way. Well, if he really wants that game, go buy it for him and don't come here on your knees begging for money. Now I will keep this tip, and you can scram off, please. The manager heard my argument with this witch, and as always, she instantly ran up to him saying that I stole her money and demanding that I get fired on the spot. I have a somewhat good relationship with my manager, so I'm not too worried. Manager: care to explain why she is saying that you stole her money? Me: well, I didn't steal anything from her. I got this money as a tip, and she came up to me wanting. She says, cutting me off. That's nonsense. He just grabbed the money out of my hands. Manager: calm down, ma'am. Let him speak. The manager was visibly annoyed by now, and I was about to explode. We continued to fight about it for a good minute or so before one guy from the group came over. They were outside smoking. Cool dude. Hey, sorry for interrupting, but I can confirm that the money is him. We gave him that tip for being a good waiter. Manager: well, I guess that sorts it. Ma'am, would you be so kind as to get out of my restaurant and don't come back? The entitled mother gave me a death glare, but I just smiled and giggled in her face as she stormed off with her kid hanging after. That feeling when she knew she lost was the best feeling ever. I also got the rest of the day off for the hassle. Edit: some clarifications and corrections. This is a rough translation of the convo that went on in my language, so some parts might sound exaggerated on English, but is pretty basic where I live. We are pretty straight out with our choice of words. Story 3. I, a 25-year-old male, have been living away from home ever since graduating from college. My parents both retired recently, and last summer they decided to use some of the money they had saved to finally build their dream retirement home in New Orleans, where they had been living for the past 10 years. I come from a very close-knit family, so I still talk to my parents every week. They were so excited when they told me they had already picked out the location for the house. It was an empty lot in a pleasant neighborhood, where an older home had recently been demolished due to age. The previous owner, who was quite wealthy and owned multiple properties around the city, decided the lot was worth more without the house on it. My parents purchased it as soon as it went on the market, but not long after construction began, they discovered that they were building their dream home right next door to what could only be described as the territory of a very difficult neighbor. Let's call her Karen. The trouble began when my parents had to cut down a large oak tree that sat in the front of the lot. It was truly a sight to behold, one of those big southern live oaks. Although they didn't want to remove it, it was in the way of the construction. No one likes to cut down such a beautiful tree, and believe me, if there had been a way to keep it without affecting the build, my parents would have done so. They called a tree removal service, and the tree was gone within a short time. A few days later, my dad was on the property speaking to some of the construction workers to ensure everything was going smoothly. As he walked back to his car, he saw a woman in her late 50s come out of the house next door and head toward her mailbox. My dad, let's call him John, is a relaxed, easygoing man who likes to get along with everyone. He walked over to introduce himself. "Hi," he said, offering his hand. "My name's John, and my wife and I are going to be your neighbors once our house is finished. I just wanted to say hello and introduce myself. It's nice to meet you. What's your name?" Karen glanced at his extended hand, looked him up and down, and glared. "My name is none of your business," she replied sharply. "I'm not going to shake your hand because of the pandemic, and even if there wasn't one, I still wouldn't shake your hand because you people ruined my life when you cut down my tree. I still can't believe how selfish you are. You should be ashamed of yourselves." My dad was taken aback by this. He pointed out that Karen already had a large oak tree in her backyard, but she ignored him and walked back inside. She never explained why she believed she owned the tree that had been removed, and whenever my parents asked, she refused to answer. I suppose it's one of those mysteries we will never solve, like the lost Roanoke colony or the fate of D.B. Cooper. Later that day, my parents met some of the other neighbors, including a kind elderly couple who lived on the other side of Karen's house. When my dad told them what had happened, they said Karen treated everyone like that and no one in the neighborhood liked her. In fact, they were in the process of selling their home because they could no longer tolerate living next to her. Karen quickly began proving her reputation. For months, whenever my parents visited the construction site, she would find something to complain about or confront them over. Once, she said the workers were too loud and threatened to call the police, even though it was the middle of the day. Another time, she accused the construction company of hiring undocumented workers as cheap labor and threatened to call the United States Immigration and Customs Enforcement Agency to shut down the project. When my dad told the company's owner, the owner sent Karen a formal letter threatening legal action if she tried. I'm not sure if there were genuine grounds for a lawsuit, but the warning must have worked because Immigration and Customs Enforcement never appeared. Then there was the time she tried to have my parents' car towed for illegal parking, when they had simply parked at the curb of their still unfinished home. The first my parents knew about this incident was when the tow truck actually arrived. However, the driver took one look at where their car was parked and told Karen that if she called him again for something like this, he would send her the bill for wasting his time. I could give you a dozen more examples. Karen did everything she could think of to interfere. She was absolutely relentless in her mission to avenge a tree she never even owned. Thankfully, the house was finished despite all her attempts to cause trouble. My parents moved in shortly after the holidays. My mom later told me she caught Karen watching them from her window, her expression filled with bitterness as they carried boxes inside. At first, my mom worried that Karen might continue her behavior. But surprisingly, things were quiet for a while, perhaps because Karen was too busy stewing over her failed efforts. That changed just a few weeks ago. New Orleans had been experiencing severe weather due to winter storms sweeping across much of the southern United States. One particular storm was powerful enough to knock over the large oak tree in Karen's backyard. It didn't land on her house, but it did fall squarely onto her shiny new Jaguar, crushing it beyond recognition. According to my parents, Karen didn't discover the damage until the next morning. When she stepped outside and saw the twisted metal that used to be her car, she threw back her head and let out a dramatic scream that could have been straight out of a horror movie. She had to hire a tree removal service to get rid of the fallen oak, then arrange for a tow truck to haul away what was left of the vehicle. On top of that, she needed to rent a car to get around. Not long after, Karen put her property up for sale. She eventually moved out, much to the relief of everyone in the neighborhood. My parents told me they sat on the porch of their beautiful new home and watched her drive away, feeling a wave of satisfaction that their life there could finally be peaceful. Story 4. Okay, I'll start with some background information. I am about 6 foot tall, have long hair for a guy, and I'm about 16 years old and am apparently an old people magnet in stores. I'll be referring to Karen as the mean lady. Okay, so today was a strange day. I was just studying my test for tomorrow when I realized that I ran out of snacks. It was about 10 a.m. at that time, so I figured I'd just go to the big chain store a few blocks away from my house. Looking back, I should have known most old people shop at those hours in my hometown, but I was just hungry for snacks. I am not really scary, but because of my purple jacket, black pants, man bun and earphones and blasting rap music, I didn't really look like an employee, or so I thought. I was just browsing the store to find some snacks and maybe something for dinner that day. As I ducked to search between the salted nuts for a decent-looking bag, I felt a hard tap on my shoulder. I turned my music off and turned around, only to see a nice old lady asking me if I could help her. I always get asked to help by old ladies. I don't know why, but they always seem to like me. So I say, "Sure, what can I help with?" She says that she wants a microwave, but she can't lift it into her cart. I tell her that I will come with her so I can help. I already had everything I needed now, so I just tagged along with the nice lady and helped her with putting it in her cart and onto the belt. I kept talking to the nice old lady, and she asked me why I was so nice to her, so I said that I just try to help elderly people when I can. She tried to pay for my snacks too, but I rejected her offer because I had my card ready already. When I put her microwave in her trunk, she slid a 10-euro bill into my hand and said it was good to see that some people still behave well. After the nice old lady drove off, I realized that I forgot to buy potatoes for dinner, so I ran home, dropped everything off, and went back in. This time was less wholesome. I entered the store and went immediately to the potatoes. I tried looking for the best bag because the store was known for their potatoes that'd have more black spots than any other store. So I found a nice bag of good-looking big potatoes. As I am lifting the big bag onto my cart, I hear a groan and tapping of a shoe on the tiled floor. So thinking that I was standing in the way, I try to move aside, but Karen isn't having it. She starts to groan even louder. Knowing that I messed up, I turn around and guess what I see. And not so nice-looking old lady. She was probably around 60, but was wearing clothes a 20-year-old would wear. I'm talking a crop top and light blue jeans 3 sizes too small with sandals on, and of course, she had the haircut, but more gray than blonde. I try not to judge anyone, but she was on another level. She loudly said, "Finally, I have been trying to get your attention for at least 5 minutes now." I say sorry, I wasn't paying attention. She then started screaming at me about how she demands me, not asking but demanding, that I help her put her stuff in her car after she pays for it. I told her that I am not going to do it because she screamed at me. She then says, "You have no choice, you have to. It's your job. I saw you outside helping the other lady 15 minutes ago." I tell her, first of all, I am not an employee here, and second of all, if I was, I'd decline to help you due to your behavior against me just now. Then I try to walk away, but she is now in alpha Karen mode, so she tries to push me aside. She was kinda on the bigger side, so her push with all force kinda was harder than I expected. I end up tripping over a tile that sticks out partially and faceplant into the aisle next to me. Karen, knowing what she did, screamed, "Ah no, don't touch me." I was completely stunned by her actions, so I didn't know what to say. So an employee arrives, and she starts crying and telling him her lies, all while they walk to the closest bench so she can sit to rest after being jumped. I try to get back up myself, but due to my bad landing, I managed to hurt my back and couldn't balance myself properly, so I just decided to just lay down and wait until someone arrives. Luckily, an old man saw everything and came up to me to help me up. I said I can wait and that I didn't want him to hurt his back helping me up. But the old guy wasn't taking no for an answer. He just picked me up gently, gave me his cane to lean on, and giggled saying, "My wife makes me use it just in case, but you don't need it now." As soon as I thank him, the manager arrives with a not-so-happy look, until he sees me barely being able to stand and the old man helping me. He asks me what happened, and I tell him my story, and the old guy backs me up. He then said to me that the police are already on their way and that we can stay in his office until they get there. As soon as we hear sirens, I feel scared. I am an underage boy with a man bun and am being accused of assaulting an old lady, so in my head, my life is over. I am trying not to puke out of stress while we wait. After Karen told her story and said I should be fired by the police. Because yeah, the police can fire me from a store, I don't work at SMH. They come to me and start asking me questions. The old guy is still with us and getting bored. He just says, "Jim," apparently the manager's name, "just show them the camera footage instead of wasting this kid's time." The manager says okay here and turns his screen to show us the entire thing on security footage. I was so relieved to know that I had proof now. After 10 minutes, he asks if I would like to press charges. I said I'll contact him with my parents later. He gives me his details and we walk out. Me too, but slowly. The officer then cuffs the Karen and she keeps screaming all the way to the car. The old man said he was the manager's old supervisor and was also shopping for dinner that day when he noticed Karen bullying customers. We laughed a little bit and I ended up buying his groceries as a thank you for helping me, and I'm now in the hospital waiting for the results. But they think my back will be fine. Was it worth it? Probably not. Was it on purpose? Probably not. Did she deserve it? Definitely. I may be the jerk for not helping an elderly lady, but she was well capable of it if she can push me to the floor. I'm glad she got a lifetime ban and a lawsuit because of her assaulting me. Edit. For those who are curious, the aisle I fell on was filled with cans and glass jars, so it wasn't a good landing. But I have no permanent damage, just some bruises and some cuts from the edge of a jar scraping some skin. But after pictures were taken, my parents took the opportunity to sue the Karen, and we're now waiting for them to legalize the complaint for harassment. Story 5. The grocery store I work at instituted a policy that lets us stay open an hour later for medical professionals and emergency services. You know, nurses, and the people who respond to 911 calls. We close to the general public at 9, and from 9 to 10 is supposed to be a time for the aforementioned people to come in and shop unobstructed. Also thought I'd mention that we open an hour early for senior citizens. Unfortunately, Karen had her own interpretation of this policy. Me? Karen, typical haircut, mid-30s. Manager, 6'5", easily 300 pounds. West African immigrant. Not the type of guy you want to mess with. It was 9:45 p.m., 15 minutes until close, and I was restocking eggs when Karen pushed her cart, filled to the brim with groceries. Her newborn baby was sitting in a car seat in the front of the cart. Her, ahem. Me, hello ma'am, how can I help you? Where are the cookies? They're in aisle 12. Would you like me to take you to them? Yes, that would be good. Since aisle 12 is pretty far from the eggs, I decided to make some small talk, since we were trained to do that. I think it's really great what you guys do for society. Thanks. So are you a nurse? Oh no, I'm a mom. Moms are the most essential workers, wouldn't you think? We weren't allowed to call people out for not being an EMT or something, so I agreed. We got to aisle 12, and she started taking cookies down from the shelf and putting them in her cart. As she was walking away from the shelf, she bumped it with her cart, and the entire shelf of cookies fell down. I had spent an entire hour leveling that shelf, and now all my efforts were gone. And instead of apologizing and helping clean up, she said, "Oops, I'd help, but I have to get going. My kids are waiting at home," and just walked away. Just to clarify, the shelf itself didn't fall down, but all the cookies did. I knelt in front of the pile of cookies, defeated. I started putting the cookies back up as her cart squeaked away. I would have gone after her, but my store is very committed to the whole "the customer is always right" thing. I started putting the cookies back up, which would honestly take another hour and a half because of the sheer amount of cookies on the floor. About 15 minutes in, my manager comes by and freaks out about the cookies. But then he realizes that I wouldn't just knock down all these cookies, right? So he asked me, "What happened?" Me. Some lady bumped her cart into the shelf, and everything fell down. What? Yeah, so I'm cleaning it up. Don't worry, I'll be fast. Oh hell no. Where did she go? Down the aisle. He took off, like sprinting. I didn't follow him because I wanted to finish the cookies before my shift ended. So the following interaction is second-hand from one of the cashiers. He managed to catch her as she had just paid and was leaving with her cart full of groceries. This was about 10:05 now, past close. Manager, hey you. Karen, yes. My stalker tells me you made a mess in my cookie aisle. Why? I don't know what you mean. I wasn't even in the cookie aisle. I can see the cookies in your cart. I'm sorry? I need to go. I'm an essential worker. What kind of worker? A mom. My mother, back in Nigeria, worked 12-hour a day after my father died, and she still has time afterward to clean up her messes. No, really, I have to go. Go clean up the cookies. But who will watch my baby and my groceries? You can bring it with you, so your baby can learn how to take care of his own messes. She reluctantly goes with the manager and comes over to the cookie aisle where I'm still slaving away. The manager tells me to get up. I say okay. He turns to Karen, "Now clean up the mess." It took her until about 10:45, but it would have been a lot longer if the manager hadn't felt sorry for her, and so he and I started helping her. At the end, she apologized to me and the manager, and she actually paid for some of the broken packages. We helped her take her groceries to her, where apologized profusely again. I'm happy there was actually a good ending to this, and Karen ended up learning her lesson and apologized. I just wish it was like this for every Karen. Story 6. Howdy, folks. Long-time lurker here, but I've only enjoyed this sub via the Red Wheel YouTube videos until now. While it's not the typical retail horror story, I thought you might enjoy it here anyway. I'm a retired veteran and have been for more than 20 years, making this story just about 3 decades old. Usual disclaimers for the passage of time and my failing memory, but I'll do my best. Ick, impatient Karen, a cranky military spouse asterisk. RL, records lady, a sweet older woman who worked in the office part-time. Me, that's me, Peter Screek 907. Sorry if this setup gets too long. I'm in civilian government service these days, but back then, I was a technical sergeant in the healthcare administration field. I had been assigned to the base hospital's outpatient records office as the non-commissioned officer in charge, not long before these events transpired, and we were short-staffed due to Operations Desert Shield and Desert Storm. So we were busy. This was long before the days of electronic medical records. These were good old-fashioned colored folders, chock full of all your appointment notes and test results, all filed on shelves, lots and lots of shelves. What with active duty personnel, their family members, and local retirees and their spouses, there were about 44,000 of them. If you scheduled an appointment more than 24-48 hours in advance, we would pull your record the night before and send it to your provider's clinic. Otherwise, you had to come see us yourself to sign out your record before you could be seen. It was a weekday, early to mid-morning I think, and we had a long line of patients at our service window. I was on duty, along with 2-3 junior enlisted workers, and records lady, a very nice lady. We were dodging each other in the narrow aisles and pulling records as quickly as we could. It wasn't quick enough for the impatient Karen, though, who records lady was helping. I was near the window checking a patient's eligibility when Karen sighed like the air brakes on a bus pulling up to the curb. A moment later Karen whines, "What is taking so long?" Then, "This is stupid. I can't believe this," and "What's wrong with her?" Waiting in line is rarely fun, and is much less so when you or your children are sick, so I get it. I stepped up and told Karen I'd check on her record and be right with her. I found records lady in the aisles, looking at the shelves with confused frustration, and I understood the delay. Records lady had suffered a traumatic brain injury some years before, and while she didn't have any major deficits or disabilities, she occasionally had trouble processing numbers. Our records were organized using a terminal digit system, based on the first 2 digits of the last 4 digits of the service member's social security number. This could be challenging enough for records lady if she was in a rush. Being under the pressure of a foul-tempered Karen didn't help. I suggested she take a break in the back, found the record, and took it to the service window. "Here you go, ma'am. I'm sorry about the wait," I told her. "Finally, you need to get rid of that woman. I can't believe she actually gets paid to work here." Each exclamation point was accompanied by an increase in volume and venom. "I should complain to your commander." I wondered how in the hell this woman could not see and understand the difference between records lady's uniform and mine. I was wearing BDOS battle dress uniform, and she was wearing street clothes with an apron. Mine was woodland camo and her apron was white, with some red trim, maybe pink, too, and a conspicuous red cross smack dab in the middle of it, as in the American Red Cross. Me, after handing Karen her record, "I understand your frustration and again, I'm sorry for the wait. But while the records lady does work here, she's a Red Cross volunteer. She doesn't get paid for helping you. Not 1 dime. However, I'll forward your concerns to my commander, and I'll send a copy to your husband's commander as well, as a professional courtesy, of course." She went pale, realizing that she may have just gotten her husband into trouble. She drank her big steaming cup of shut the hell up and walked the walk of shame to her appointment without another word. Just as I promised, I wrote up the incident for my commander, who contacted Karen's husband's company, clued in my first sergeant, and CC'd the hospital patient advocate, just in case. Never heard anything further. Not long after that, I worked with a Red Cross coordinator to find Records Lady another volunteer position, one where she wouldn't be subjected to that kind of treatment, something that also better suited her talents. She really was a nice, generous lady, and I didn't want to see her volunteer efforts wasted thanks to some self-centered Karen's abusiveness. Note: as a general rule, military spouses are awesome, smart, strong, capable, and they hold the fort on their own, while their other half is deployed halfway around the world. But as with any walk of life, there are bad apples. Entitled, pompous, demanding, and sometimes think they wear their spouse's rank. Shame walk, lady, shame walk.